Thank you for listening to this Belly Up Sports Podcast Network product. Some said we go belly up, so we made it our name, and we're still here.
All right, what's going on, guys? My name is Alex, and welcome to the Beyond Half Court Podcast, episode number 13. Quick intro. Once again, we're going to try to go 2 for 2 so far. I have another YouTube channel. It's Beyond Half Court. I've been uploading videos over there. Since the last episode, I've actually uploaded 3. I got one talking about pretenders and contenders of the NBA season so far. I also have one where I talk about some trades that I think should or will happen. And then I also have one, it's a little bit of a different video for me, but I was reacting to a video from Player's Choice. Player's Choice is another YouTube channel that I like to watch a lot. They're mainly focused on NBA, but they have other talk shows as well about like football. And I think they just started soccer as well. But there's this one guy named Ticket TV, and he is a very delusional guy, very funny guy, very passionate. And they were having an argument between a hypothetical duo between Dirk and Steve Nash against Kevin Garnett and who's the other guy? Kevin Garnett and Chris Paul. Yeah, he said some pretty wild stuff. So definitely go check out that video. It's definitely different for me, but I really enjoyed making that one. So go check that out. I also have other socials. I'm on Twitter. You guys can probably see it somewhere on the screen here. It's at BHCT23. And I also have a TikTok. It's Beyond Half Court. So you can go watch my TikToks over there as well. Other than that, I guess we can just get into it. That was under 2 minutes. So we are making it a little bit shorter here. I got 3 things I wanted to talk about, but the first thing I wanted to talk about was the John Collins trade rumors. So if you guys weren't aware, the Hawks have opened up kind of just the start of maybe some trade discussions involving John Collins, as teams are kind of inquiring about him. John Collins so far up to the season is kind of putting some low numbers, at least, compared to what he's been able to do the past couple of seasons. Obviously, you still have his rookie season. They're not that low, but they're the lowest since his rookie season. Currently, right now, he is averaging almost 13 points a game, 7 rebounds, pretty much a steal and a block a game. And his field goal percentage is only at 49%. You wish it would maybe bump over 50. And he's only shooting 22% from 3-point line. So again, not that great, especially since he's a 37% career 3-point shooter. So it would make sense to why maybe John Collins is on the trading block for the Hawks. Maybe they want something a little bit more diverse. Maybe they want to add someone else who's been a little bit more consistent. The Athletic wrote an article about this. It was Shams, and Shams was talking about there were some guys that kind of fit the criteria for what the Hawks were looking for. They were looking for, I believe, Harrison Barnes, Kyle Kuzma. There is another guy in there, kind of like in that same kind of like could play the 3, could play the 4. And honestly, I think Kyle Kuzma might be the best option for the Hawks. Right now, I know for a fact Kuzma has been playing really good with the Washington Wizards. He's right now averaging almost 19 points a game, 7 rebounds as well, 8 rebounds, 3 assists as well. That's actually very surprising. He has improved as a playmaker ever since he's came to Washington. And his shooting splits are actually looking pretty decent, except for the 3. He's got 44% from the field, only 30% from 3. You wish that maybe that was up as well, and only 71% from the line. But I would just say on the surface, those are definitely some better numbers than John Collins. And I also think that Kuzma maybe provides a little bit more defense than John Collins. I know there's a lot of potential with John Collins as a defender because of his athleticism and being able to block shots. I think that definitely helps, but I just feel like Kuzma all around is a better shot blocker, and the Hawks already have Clint Capella, so you still have someone back there, and you have a Kongu coming off the bench as well. So I think they need to focus more a little bit on perimeter defense. I think Kyle Kuzma could be he's not going to be a great rim protector, but he gives you half a block a game, which is more. He only gets 0.3 steals, but again, I still don't think what you average in steals and blocks necessarily determines how good of a rim protector or, how good of a perimeter defender you are. You can average some pretty low numbers and still be, good as a rim protector. You look at like Tyson Chandler. There's one year, I think he either barely averaged one block or he was just under a block a game, and he still got all defensive second team. I think that was 2011 when he was on the Mavs. So, and we know Tyson Chandler is a good rim protector. So, yeah, I think Kuzma could definitely be a better perimeter defender than John Collins. I think he just has a little bit more athleticism, being able to move side to side a little bit better than John Collins. And offensively as well, he's just a more potent scorer. So if you're the Hawks, I definitely understand the wanting to get Kuzma. Harrison Barnes would also be a good pickup, but with how the Kings have been playing so far, I don't think the Kings are really ready to get away from Harrison Barnes. He's been playing really good for them. And also, I just think in general, Harrison Barnes, although he is a good player, I feel like the Hawks maybe want a little bit more athleticism. And Harrison Barnes at this point of his career is not as he's not as athletic as he used to be. So maybe not the best time to get him now, maybe like 3-4 years ago, but definitely not now. So I think Kuzma would definitely be the best option for the Hawks. I think that also kind of, who else? Maybe I don't know who you would trade if you were the Phoenix Suns, but maybe Jay Crowder would be involved in a trade for John Collins, so John Collins could go to the Suns, and maybe that brings Cam Johnson back off the bench. Cam Johnson has been doing pretty good as a starter, but you can tell that he has had to make a little bit of adjustment because he is so used to playing off the bench. If you do get John Collins, I think you can just put him back onto the bench, and maybe he will have to acclimate to being the bench guy again, but I think it'll be a lot more comfortable for him. And I think just in general, John Collins would definitely add to the depth for the Suns, which I think they've kind of lost ever since their finals run. I think they have lost a little bit of their depth, even though their depth now still isn't bad. To me, it's just not as good as it was maybe 2 years ago or even last year. Uh, so maybe Jay Crowder could come to the Hawks, and honestly, that'd be a good fit as well. Obviously, not the offensive guy, but definitely the defensive guy that you need, and he can obviously shoot threes, and he's a perfect 3-and-D guy for that team, and that honestly be a really good defensive unit with Jay Crowder and DeJounte Murray, and then you have Capella in the paint. DeAndre Hunter, as long as he's healthy, he's been a pretty solid defender as well. Not great, but not bad, just somewhere in the middle. A little bit of versatility as well on the wing, which the Hawks always need, since Trae Young is a liability on that side of the floor. So maybe the Suns could definitely be a possibility, but I like the idea of maybe Kuzma coming to Atlanta. I think that'd be really good. It gives him more offense, of course. Can never have too much offense, and honestly, I think he might be just a better fit defensively for the Hawks. And even when you're looking at the Wizards situation, I don't even know, would the Wizards do that? Because Porzingis has been playing really good as well, and I feel like if you pair Porzingis with another big guy like John Collins, I feel like that might mess him up a little bit, because Kuzma is definitely a lot more perimeter oriented than John Collins is. John Collins is more of a set a screen, run to the rim, or sit in the corner. I don't know how well that would fit with Porzingis. So, in terms of the Wizards, I'm not sure if I'd give up Kuzma for John Collins, but I would definitely do it the other way around. Now, if you let's look at the other teams too. If you're the Kings and you did end up trading uh, Harrison Barnes for John Collins, would John Collins start? Because right now they have Keegan Murray starting, I believe, and he's been really good for them. But obviously, I think at this point we could say John Collins is better than Keegan Murray. So, are we going to start John Collins? And how is a John Collins Sabonis, you know, duo as the power forward center position really going to work? A Miles Turner Sabonis fit obviously had questions to it. I think you could ask the same kind of questions with that as well. I think John Collins is a very interesting player because he could very well play the center position, but he is not as strong as a lot of these centers, in the league. So he kind of has to go to that power forward spot. But John Collins as well has been able to thrive next to Clint Capella. So, if you add more offensive versatility with like Sabonis being able to play make as well and maybe space out the floor a little bit more than Capella, at least in the mid range, then maybe John Collins actually would be a good fit with the Kings. But again, if I was the Hawks, I don't know if I would want to take Harrison Barnes. I would have to get, maybe like a pick and maybe an extra player as well if I wanted to take Harrison Barnes. Even though Harrison Barnes is good, I just don't know about the athleticism. And obviously, when you look into the long term, Harrison Barnes should theoretically start, degressing as a player. So I would want at least another player to kind of counteract that digression. If that's even a word, I don't even know if it is. But yeah, that's what's going on with John Collins. Let me know what you guys think is going to happen. I know it's actually funny. I saw a lot of people saying like, John Collins and Miles Turner, they're always on the trade market and they never get traded. So that could very well happen as well. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think he's going to end up just staying like he always does? Or do you actually think a trade will happen? And let me know if there's a team maybe I didn't discuss here that you think maybe John Collins has a good chance of going there. But yeah, so that's what's going on with John Collins. The second thing that I wanted to talk about, and I'm really done talking about the Nets, but something always comes up to where I have to talk about the Brooklyn Nets. I can't let it slide, man. I just can't. Kevin Durant, he did an interview after a super tough loss. Was it against the Kings? I believe it was against the Kings. The Kings scored 153 points that game, and it was one of the worst losses the Nets have had this season, and it'll probably be the worst loss that they have all season. Being able to, the Kings have the second ranked offense, but 153 points is crazy, man. But Kevin Durant had an interview with Chris Haynes and Mark Spears right after the game, and this quote came up. It was through the interview with Chris Haynes, and I'll read it here. And this is a quote again from Kevin Durant, and it goes, "Look at our starting lineup: Edmund Sumner, Royce O'Neal, Joe Harris, Claxton, and me. It's not disrespect, but what are you expecting from that group? Do you expect us to win because I'm out there?" And that's the end of the quote. So this is a very interesting quote because just to side with Kevin Durant before I kind of not necessarily go off on him, but kind of push back on his quote. Yeah, I definitely did not expect the Nets to perform very well this season. I think just based off how I've talked about them in the past couple podcasts and even on my other channel, I've definitely not believed in this Nets team. Now, I definitely thought they would be around like that 5 or 6 seed, but I just never thought they would be good enough to where I thought they would even make noise in the playoffs. I thought it would be a pretty easy first round exit, and it would depend on the matchup. If they went against someone like if a team that I thought was going to be lower, like exceeded expectations, and I think the Nets could possibly beat them, but at this moment in time, I think they're definitely a first round exit. So yeah, I kind of agree with Kevin Durant in that sense, but now this is when I'm gonna kind of go off on Kevin Durant. You are kind of the reason why you have players like Edmund Sumner on your team, and this is why. So when Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving came, or actually even before they came, they had a very young and the Nets were up and coming. They had D'Angelo Russell, who became a first-time All-Star. You still had Jared Allen. You had Karis LeVert. There were some young guys on that team, and the energy was super high. And then obviously D'Lo gets traded so that they can get Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving comes along as well. And they still have some really great talent. They have Joe Harris still. They have Jared Allen again, who's just getting better. And obviously you add KD and Kyrie to that mix. And they also signed Karis LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie. I forgot to add Dinwiddie. But you add, two great players like Kyrie and KD to that mix. And they look really good. They got the depth. I think their defense was still looking pretty solid at that point. Not the best, but definitely not to the point where it is now, where they're like one of the worst in the league. They're definitely somewhere in that middle of the pack. And middle of the pack defense is fine because they were so good offensively. They were like one of the top 5 offenses in the league. And you can have a middle of the pack defense and have one of the best offenses and still be, a title contender. So, that's what we were looking at there. And obviously their first year, Kevin Durant did not play. And Kyrie Irving also missed some time as well. But then that next season after, when everyone was healthy, they got to the second round against the Bucks, and obviously we remember what happened there. KD choked in overtime. He went 0 for 6, and he had the foot on the line to send it to OT. That's a whole different conversation. And then the next year after, obviously, they get swept by the Celtics. And now we're kind of just where we are here. And progressively throughout those years, they lost their depth. And the reason why for that was because they made that trade for James Harden. and James Harden, you lost Karis LeVert, you lost Jared Allen, and that was kind of like your two young pieces that you had originally, two of the three at least, and now all three of those guys from that up and coming Nets team are gone, and the thing is too, I blame Kevin Durant for like agreeing to do that trade because I didn't really thought it moved the needle. But you also have to kind of blame the front office as well. And the reason why I say that is because the replacements that they got for those guys that they traded just were not good at all. They were relying on Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge, guys who just obviously were not, good. Um, and and they did have, they had some good games, but when you get to the playoffs and the lineups condensed, so that means you get more minutes for other players. Like those guys just weren't ready. And now Blake Griffin is on the Celtics, and he's not even playing on the Celtics. And LaMarcus Aldridge, from what I've seen, hasn't played. So I don't. Is he even still on the Nets? I don't know if he's still on the Nets or not. If he is, he's not playing. And if he's not on the Nets, he's not on any other team. But you got to blame the front office because the replacements that they did get were not good at all. They were bad replacements. I don't really think they were prepared to make replacements. So it's a little bit of a KD and a front office situation. And that's kind of like my main gripe with this quote is like, you are a little bit of the reason why you are in this situation. I won't put full responsibility. I think some of it does have to go to the front office. Again, like what I said previously, but this is also just a really weird quote as well. Definitely, a 2K minus 25 team chemistry response here. I just don't understand why you would say this, especially since, they started off really bad, but before this quote, once they fired Steve Nash, they were actually looking pretty good. They've actually turned it around a little bit on the defensive end. And then I just feel like this quote kind of just sets everything back again. Like why are we saying this now? And I think that's the next question we have to ask is, why is it now that Kevin Durant is all of a sudden deciding to talk about why he backed out of the trade? Because in that interview with Chris Haynes and Mark Spears, he also talked about why he decided to back out of that trade as well. And you have to wonder, why now? Why not before the season, or why not just keep it till the end? If you do eventually leave, like, then you can talk about it then, I guess. But it's just a very weird time to bring it up, and I'm not quite sure why. I will say that if you just think, if the listeners, if you think he's doing it to sabotage the team or maybe possibly force a trade again, not Mark Spears, sorry, Chris Haynes actually was on ESPN, I believe, and they asked him like, "Oh, why now? Why did Kevin Durant do it now?" And it just kind of seemed to be like a spur of the moment. They asked Kevin Durant before the Kings game if they could do an interview, and he said yeah. And then obviously they unfortunately lost big time, 153 points. So it was just kind of like bad timing, but it wasn't like, oh, I lost, so I'm gonna go and do this interview and talk shit about my teammates. It just kind of seemed like a spur of the moment thing that just so happened to look really bad. It was really bad timing. So I still have to wonder why. Like, why now? Why now? Why is now the time? And he was very honest in that interview too. So it's like, even if you felt like it wasn't the time, why were you so honest? And even if you felt like it was the time, you would think you maybe would try to like sugarcoat it a little bit. It's a very honest interview. So I go ahead and you got to go read all the quotes. There's even more than this one that I read, but it just seems like a very weird time to do it. Not sure why he said it. Why I know why he said it. It's because he asked him the questions, but just an interesting quote. Kind of blame KD for it, kind of blame the front office. It's a little bit of both, but those are kind of my thoughts on it. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that Kevin Durant should have just stayed quiet? Do you agree with Kevin Durant? Do you agree with what I'm saying? Let me know in the comments below. And the last thing I wanted to talk about, this is going to be a little bit of a shorter podcast. Not really much has happened so far. We'll definitely go deep nitty gritty next week because I have a couple ideas of what we can do. We'll maybe do some midterm grading for all the teams. But the last thing that I wanted to talk about was why are all these players getting injured? Why is everyone getting injured now? So right now, I have 4 players listed currently and they're all really good players. I have Desmond Bain, John Morant, Cade Cunningham, and Tyrese Maxey all out for a good amount of time. So I'll start with Desmond Bain, and Desmond Bain has been having an absolutely crazy season. I would not be surprised if he's at least a candidate for most improved player. Right now, he's averaging almost 25 points a game, 46% from the field, 45% from three on 8.5 attempts, which is crazy. And he's also shooting 91% from the line. He is currently out right now with a toe injury. He's going to be out for 2 or 3 weeks. And he had this injury maybe like 4 days ago. So it's been a little bit of time. So maybe it's about 1 or 2 weeks at this point. But Desmond Bain has been playing extremely well. I think what's kind of made him the threat that he is now is he's just getting better off the dribble, and he's a lot better playmaker as well. You can just tell he's a lot more confident with the ball in his hands. He's averaging a career high in assists right now, almost about 5 a game. Uh, just making smarter decisions as well. You can just tell, like, when he's, coming off the pick and roll, he's not just looking for his shot. He's kind of letting the play develop and kind of choosing his spots of whether he wants to pass out or if he wants to take the shot. And I think he's doing a really good job on that. And I think it's perfect for what the Grizzlies need, because John Morant can't be the only guy who's doing all the work. And, if you run lineups with Tyus Jones, with John Morant, it's like it can't just be those two guys. If you can get 3 guys all in the same game who can do stuff with the ball and distribute on top of scoring, it just makes your offense a lot more unpredictable. So that's something that I really value, especially come playoff time. You cannot have a predictable offense, or teams are just going to be able to stop it. So shout out to Desmond Bain. And it's a toe injury, so he may be the only thing he might be a little bit slow coming back, because he's not able to really run or do any conditioning. But he should be able to quickly get back to what he was doing before he got injured, which is averaging 25 points a game. And to go back on the most improved player last year, he averaged 18 points a game. So that's a 5-2. That's like a 7-point jump. And the efficiency and volume has gone up as well. Not by much, but it still has gone up. So shout out to Desmond Bain. And then we'll talk about his teammate, John Morant. John Morant just got injured a couple days ago before I'm recording this. He's currently out just week to week with a sprained ankle. And right now, he's looking like an MVP candidate, averaging 28 points a game. He got 6 rebounds, 7 assists as well, a steal a game. And the craziest thing as well, his 3-point percentage has dropped down from the last time that I saw. He was shooting like 42, 43%, I believe. I didn't think that was sustainable, but he's shooting 39% still on about from 3 on about 5 attempts a game. And I love that. I love that for Ja. Again, a lot of his success, I think, will determine on how good of a 3-point shooter he is, because if he's just not a good 3-point shooter, it'll be a lot harder for him in the playoffs to, attack the rim, which is his strong suit. And so that's really good for John Morant. He's definitely an MVP candidate. I believe he's probably top 5, and if he's not top 5, maybe he's like 6. He's probably like 5 or 6 in the MVP race. There's a lot of guys this year that are doing really good, so it's hard to tell exactly where he lands in that, but he's definitely there. He's definitely been a top 10 player this season, and it's only a week-to-week injury, so he should be coming back pretty soon. And then Cade Cunningham. This is actually the worst injury that we have to talk about right now. He has a shin injury, and it's so bad that he's out indefinitely. And he has 2 different ways this can go. So one, he can just let it heal naturally. So who knows when that would, happen, when he would be able to come back. What I think is going to happen is he'll try to, heal in and see what happens, but eventually this is the second option. He's going to have to get surgery for that. So, really tough loss for the Pistons, but, fortunately for the Pistons, they haven't really been doing well anyway. They're currently only 3-14, which is either, the worst or second worst record in the league. And, if you want Victor Wembanyama, there's no better way to get him than losing your best player. So shout out to the Pistons for, possibly getting the number 1 pick because of this injury, but also shout out to Cade because he's been having a really great season as well. Yet you honestly just hate to see these young players getting injured so quick. And I'm not really sure how big of a shin injury is. Like, if you do end up getting surgery for it, like, what's the recovery time for that? And like, are you really gonna have to like go through a lot of therapy? Is it like just an ankle sprain sort of thing? Like you come back after surgery and like you're fine, or is it more like an ACL or like a meniscus thing where you can come back and you're healthy, but it takes you like maybe a month or two to actually get back into the swing of things. But Cade Cunningham's been averaging about 20 points a game, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, all really good, really good. Actually really bad efficiency. 41% from the field, 27% from three. That's still kind of something that he has to improve on, is his efficiency. Um, what's his true shooting percentage? True shooting percentage right now is like 49%. Wow. So yeah, he is scoring a lot. He also does have to do a lot for this team, but yeah, the efficiency is not looking good at all. But also on the bright side for the Pistons, they still have Jaden Ivey, and Jaden Ivey has actually been playing really well as well. 16 points a game. Again, efficiency isn't there, but he's a rookie, so I'm not gonna go too crazy about it. But he's getting 5 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal a game. Pretty good. It's pretty good for rookies. Definitely top three. I would say either Paulo or what's the dude? Mathurin from the Pacers. I think those are like the top two guys. Honestly, interchangeable at this point. Paulo has been injured a couple games, and he hasn't been performing as well as he did like in his first six. But Mathurin has been really good. I think he's the leading scorer for rookies currently. But I think Jaden Ivey is probably at that third spot. So shout out to Jaden Ivey, but also shout out to Cade. Hopefully he does recover quickly, but also safely as well. Then we have one more injury, and it happened last night, the night before, I'm recording this, and it's Tyrese Maxey. So another loss for the 76ers, and it's also a foot injury. He's going to be out for about 3 or 4 weeks. So he'll probably come back around the same time James Harden comes back, which I guess is nice, is because it would suck if like Maxey got injured as soon as Harden came back, and then now again, you're down a guy again. But, it's better to get through the injuries now than later. But Maxey is another player that I believe should be in the most improved player conversation as well. Pulling up his stats right now on Basketball Reference, he's currently averaging almost 23 points a game. He's got four assists, and his shooting splits are really good. 46% from the field, 42% from three, only 73% from the line, which that would go up a little bit more. He is a career 84% free throw shooter, but this year's kind of tanking it. He's more of an 86% free throw shooter, so that's actually kind of strange why it's gone so low. That's some like Westbrook drop off in free throw percentage. But yeah, Tyrese Maxey is going to be missing about a month of time. And I think this is now the point of the season where Joel Embiid needs to establish himself as an MVP candidate. So the reason why I say that, and it's a thought that I have, because we think about why Jokic won MVP, especially last year, right? He didn't play all season last year because he didn't have Jamal Murray and he didn't have Michael Porter Jr. And now Embiid is playing without his second and third best player, just like Embiid or just like Jokic, right? So if you're Embiid, you gotta perform well, which I think he will, but at that point you have to lead your team to wins. And I think if he does that, I think right now I don't think he's in the top 5 MVP, but he can quickly shoot his way up if he starts winning games without Tyrese and Harden. There's definitely some guys on the list currently that I think are interchangeable, and they could definitely dip out of the top 5 if they just have a couple bad games. Like Giannis, I believe was leading the MVP race just last week, but now at this point I don't know who it is. I think you can talk about Curry, you can also talk about Luka again still. But Embiid could quickly shoot to the number 1 spot, and I think it all solely depends on how he plays in this next month. I really hope as well that Embiid doesn't get injured as well. It just seems like this is a lot of bad luck so far for the Sixers to have your second and third best player injured. It just seems bound to happen that Embiid will get injured, especially since that's kind of what he's shown us his entire career, is that, his body will break down at a certain point. Not sure when that will be, but hopefully that doesn't happen. I hate seeing star players injured, especially since it seems to be the trend as of late. Kawhi Leonard is just coming back from his injury. That was another thing that happened as well. He finally came back after a long absence of, coming off of the bench. It was like a 6 or 7 game absence. Still a very weird situation over in LA, but shout out to everyone who's injured right now. I hope, obviously, they all come back, better as ever. Keep doing what they were doing before they got injured. And I think it's just so weird now. And this last thing I want to talk about with the injuries is we talk about, we look back in the past and we talk about how players, in the late ages of like the 70s and 80s kind of had shorter careers. Like you look at Larry Bird, right? Back injuries was the big plague for his career. And we talk about today and we look at, like all these players that, increase sports medicine, like they're able to heal quicker. But it seems like players, especially star players, are starting to get injured a lot more. And that's like a question that I don't think I'm able to answer because I don't truly understand why that's happening. And I don't even know if maybe I'm just like seeing this, and maybe because I wasn't, alive during those times, maybe this was a common occurrence back then, but I don't believe it was. And I try to think the game is a lot more predicated towards space. So, and obviously there's not as much physicality, especially in the paint nowadays. So you have to think that, back in the day, players were getting injured a lot because they were, getting thrown down to the ground. But that never really seemed to be the case. But I also think we're in the stage of the NBA where, health staff of each team are really careful with the players, especially with players who have common injuries, or not common injuries, but like they have repeated injuries. Like every season, there's something wrong with them, right? So I feel like it's a mixture of, teams being safe, but also players wanting to have that, a longer career. I think you like Larry Bird, right? Like Larry Bird would probably be someone who would play through injury, right? But nowadays, a lot of players don't want to, some players do want to play through injury, but their team won't let them. But I also feel like there's some players, especially Kawhi. Um, I don't think Kawhi wants to play through injury. You can look back at San Antonio. He played like 9 games and said, no, I don't feel ready, right? And that eventually led to his trade. And then he played this season, and then he didn't feel ready. So then he went back to the bench and, went back into the street clothes. But, it's very interesting. I wonder why players are getting more injured, and I wonder if it is just because, they are being more careful in terms of the players and the team, or are players just actually getting injured more? And that makes me consider, why is that happening? I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you guys think this is like do you actually think that's a problem, or am I just kind of like making things up? Let me know what you guys think in the comments about that. But yeah, that's all I really had to talk about today, and for the week. Next week, we're probably going to be doing some midterm gradings for the teams of some sort. Not quite sure how I want to do that yet, but be on the lookout for that. That will definitely be more of an action-packed episode. We'll talk about all the teams no matter what, especially like the Blazers and the Jazz. We're going to talk about them, all right? So thank you guys for watching. Again, follow all my socials. Will be down in the description below. If you're watching on YouTube, you can also listen to this on Spotify, Spreaker, and Apple Podcasts. You can find that in the Linktree link below as well. And for my listeners, if you guys want to see my beautiful face, I got a new camera as well. So if you're watching on YouTube, you got the new camera experience. We'll see how this went. But yeah, so if you're listening, you can watch it on YouTube, Beyond Half Court Podcast. The Linktree link is somewhere. It should be on my profile, or, in the episode description of some sort. But if not, just stop being lazy and type in Beyond Half Court Podcast on YouTube. You can find it. But yeah, that's it. Everyone stay safe, have fun, enjoy the NBA season, and peace out.